In this video, we're going to talk about how to make it pretty. In other words, how to get your score to look on your printed page how you would like it to appear. Now, there are a wide variety of options that you have, and we're going to just sort of briefly go over some of the more common options that you have, some of the things that you might run into if you're opening a file that you find on the internet. Okay, to do that, we're going to use the Mozart 40th Symphony, and that comes with your program. So if you go to Open a MIDI or Notation file, you'll find that right here in your song folder. We're going to click on that, and it is a MIDI file, so it's similar to one that you could find on the internet. Okay, we're going to open that. One of the first things that you'll notice is that a recommended correction comes up. It's bass, the bass clef, which you'll notice the notation is, a lot of it's on ledger lines, okay? And typically bass instrument is written transposed up one octave from where you hear it. If you're not familiar with transpositions, we have another tutorial video that goes over the different types of transpositions. And there's also a really nice section in the user's guide, and you can use the index to look up transpose. Okay, so we're going to accept that. And you'll notice that now the contrabass notation is much easier to read. And those types of recommendations, if you want to change how those are, you can go to Setup, Transcription Options. Okay, this is what's going to happen right when you open a MIDI file. You can change the type of rhythm style, standard or swing or syncopated. You can change whether or not ornaments, such as grace notes or trills, are transcribed. You can have single voice only or upper and lower voices. If you want more simplified notation, you can remove overlaps of notes. You can also choose not to have as many rests show. So you could say you want to remove the rests that are smaller than a quarter rest or an eighth rest. If you play keyboard, there are a few different options that you might want to look at. A lot of times in a MIDI file, a keyboard part will be all in one staff, simply because to send that signal, you only need the one staff. But if you want to play it on a piano with your own two hands, you might want it split into right hand and left hand staves. Okay, guitar parts or bass parts are typically notated an octave higher than what they actually sound. You can have that changed to where you can read it to play it. If you play a single note instrument, say like a brass instrument or clarinet or something, if you have two note chords, sometimes there'll be like a grace note or two notes that are very close together. Rather than it showing as a chord, you can have that transcribed as two separated notes. Okay, and so you can change those options whenever you want. Now, so what you'll see is it will typically come up with the staff control buttons here. This is what we call the window view. Okay, this is very nice when you're working on the file, when you're trying to get things set up and all. You have your controls really handy for doing different things to the staves. But for printing, we want to use page view, and you can do that very easily right here. There's window view or page view. So we're going to change to page view. Now, you'll notice that this looks more like a printout. That's because it is. This is actually a print preview. Now, the print preview that you will see is based on the drivers for your printer. Okay? We tried to make it look as close as possible to what you are actually going to see on your printed page. So what we would see on the very first page here, the green position cursors do not show. Okay, those don't print. But what you would see, here's the title, and it's there because it was actually entered in File, Song Title, and Authors. Okay, so here you can see the song title was entered as this, and that's exactly what shows up here. When you create a file or enter a file, you can enter the song title as We could just say 40th Symphony. Okay. We could put down here Mozart. And we don't have another arranger or lyricist or copyist, copyright date, any other information you want to do. You can put those in. We'll just leave it at this for right now. And you'll see the title changed to the 40th Symphony. Now, which we'll go ahead and look here at some of the page text that you can use. Okay. When you go to page view, you'll automatically go to the layout. Here are page text, okay? Different types of things you can add. Page numbers, you can add the title, which was already there because it was entered in that field. Okay? You can have your title. If you're going to be printing different parts, okay? Here we're showing the conductor score. However, you'll also notice that there are a number of different parts, okay? If you're printing a different part, oops, I clicked out of the thing. My bad. Okay. You can click the part and you can put that somewhere such as that. Okay, now let's say you want to line that up. Okay. To format anything on the score, you click it. Okay, it turns blue. That highlights it. It's selected. Now, you'll notice there are a number of different options we have for formatting that. You can increase the font size to make it bigger. You can decrease the font size to make it smaller. We'll have it a little bit bigger. You can make it bold or not. You can have it in italics or not. These here are very handy. This tells you you're going to put this on the first page of the score only. Okay. Or you can put it on all pages of the score. Now, we'll get back to that because you can, it might collide with something and you need to check that. Or you can display it on all pages except the first one. And see here, we've got the page numbers are showing and it's colliding, so we'll need to reposition that. You can also display things on only the left pages or on only the right pages. If you're printing, if you want to print your score out so that you're putting it in a booklet, you may need those options for different types of things. Okay, you have a fair bit of flexibility here. Okay, we're going to go back here to the first page, and we're going to put that on all pages. Okay, so now you see it's going to collide here. So you can grab that handle and move it up or down or over or whatever you want to do. Now, if you've done it so that you go to the, you line it up to the right or to the left, you can do it either way, or you can line it up in the middle. Lots of different options again, okay? And if we do that, and then we go check that next page, okay, wow, it's not, colliding anymore, okay? Now you'll also see here that we have the title on other pages than the first page over here on the left. We also have page numbers, and those are on all pages except the first one. Okay, if you're wondering about a particular element and you want to see what pages you've got on, the button will highlight here. Okay, so there's that aspect. All right. Now, you may or may not want the part to show. Okay, on a conductor score, you would want all the instruments to show for their respective staves, or else you might get confused. However, if you're printing, say, the bassoon part, okay, and you've got bassoon listed here for your part, see how that shows up really nice and automatically? You wouldn't want the bassoon part showing over here. You can turn that on or off. Okay, if you show the instrument names, it will show bassoon, bassoon, bassoon. If you want to turn that off, you click off Show Instrument Names. Okay, so let's go back to the conductor score. And we're going to look at another aspect of printing or formatting your score. That's very handy. Your page setup. Okay, now this is one that sometimes throws folks. And part of that is because you're setting here your margins, your allowance at the top for things such as the title and such. Okay, and I'll show you a little example of that. Here we have the conductor score, we have the title, and that's we have room for that because we've said, okay, on the first page we're going to put a margin of 1.5 inches. Okay, just for the record, I'm using letter size because that's what my printer is set up for. You can choose whatever size paper you want that you've got that you're using. Okay, there are a number of a wide variety here. Again, those will be based if your printer allows for certain sizes, those should show up here. Okay, so having the proper printer drivers is very important. If you're having problems with printing, one of the easiest and quickest things you can do is to update your printer drivers. Okay, if you have an HP printer, you might need to get a generic driver for your printer. Sometimes HPs are a little different. Okay, you can select your source of paper, and again, this comes from your printer. You can choose whether to have inches or millimeters for your units. I have mine in inches right now. Okay, and as you're setting up these margins and such, you can either apply that to all the part arrangements or only to the part that you have showing at the time. Okay, and if you're printing out multiple parts for a lot of different instruments and you have some really specific needs, you need to pay close attention to this aspect. Okay, so for right now I'm going to apply this to all the parts, and I'm going to show you what happens for some different things that you could change. Okay, if we change this to only 1/2 inch, okay, first of all you'll see the change reflected over here. Okay, you see the little blue dashed lines? That's going to show you where your margin is at on the page. If we do that, okay, whoop, yeah, I've lost the space at the top of this for my title. Okay, if you're having trouble getting your title or other score elements up there, check Format, Page Setup. Okay, you may not have enough margin, so we'll change that back to 1.5 because that does give us enough room. Now you can choose which page, which way your odd pages go. If your first page number is 1 and you want the odd numbered pages on the left, click this box. If you want the odd numbered pages on the right, uncheck the box. Okay, this is for, it's not such a big deal if you're just printing out single sheets. However, if you're going to be doing double-sided printing, say for a booklet, if you want to put holes and put your pages in a 3-ring binder and you want to print on 2 sides, then there are a couple things you want to do. First, you want to decide which side you want your odd numbered pages on. Second, you're going to have to figure out what kind of a gutter margin you want. Okay, 1 inch or something like that is suggested. And again, you'll see here where it shows up. Okay, now we wanted the odd numbered pages on the left. Here's page 1. Okay, this is what it's showing you, page 1, and the gutter of 1 inch is on the right. If you're printing these pages to bind them or to put holes in them, to put them in a binder, like a 3-ring binder, you'll want to put a gutter on there. Okay, otherwise, if you're just printing out single sheets, you can put that at 0. Okay, so we have here, and unless you're doing double-sided printing, this won't really matter a whole lot. Okay, so that covers that part of your page setup for your margins and such as that. Okay, so we're actually going to leave it like it was because I liked it like it was. Okay, so we'll click OK whenever you've set it like you want it. If you're doing this type of setup very often, you can save that as your default. Okay. If you've made changes and stuff and you decide you don't want that, then you can restore the default that you had before that you wanted to have. Okay. So we'll click OK there. Okay, so we've got this here. Now you'll notice that this is the automatic default spacing. Okay. There are a couple of other things that we can do. It's spread out to look nice. Okay, it's not too crowded. It's not too spread out, and that's pretty good. Let's say though you have a jazz bunch that want to look at this. Okay, you can go to page layout, and you can change the vertical spacing, how it goes up and down. You can change the horizontal spacing. Okay. One kind of cool thing that we've got that you can do is you can specify the number of bars per line. Now, classical music, that's not as big a deal. In jazz music, one of the very popular formats is to have a set spacing of 4 bars per line. Okay, and you can do that, or you can set any other number that you want. The default here is 4 bars per line. Okay, and the default is to apply that to the whole score. Okay, you can, if you just want to do it for a few measures, you can do that. If, maybe there's one page that you want that one page. Okay, and you click OK, and what'll happen? See, now we have 4 measures per line, or 4 measures per line, and the little locks come up. Okay, that's what that will look like. That's a very quick and easy way to get a certain number of measures per line that you want. I'm going to undo that change for right now. Okay, anytime you do something, if you don't like it, undo it, and you can go back and try again. Okay, now one of the other things that we can do, you'll notice that these staves are resting. Okay, now let's forget that we're the conductor. Conductors would probably want to know that the flutes should be resting here, but let's say you've got a score that you want to, you're trying to conserve paper. Okay, there's an option under staff, hide resting staves. Okay, if we click that, then what'll happen is it will only show us the instruments that are active at that time. Okay, now you'll notice in staff setup, everything is still there. Okay, it's just that the ones that aren't, like flute and oboe and bassoon, those are hiding because they're resting. Okay, now if we skip some pages here. Okay, we'll go to the second page. Oh, that's where the flute comes in. Okay, and if you've got your measure numbers, however you want them, the flute will be ready. Okay, if we go to, say, the flute part, okay, and you've got all these resting staves there, or all these resting measures, you can collapse those if you want. Okay, there's really no need to print out all these measures that are empty. Okay, and so we can hide those. I'll just point out here real quick. Here's one, a trill that's been notated. That was one of our grace note options in the transcription options, if you recall. Okay, what do we do about all these empty measures here? Okay, if we go to measure, and we can collapse multiple measure rests. Okay, and what that does, that actually takes that printout down to one page, a single page for the flute. So it tells us we've got 13 measures collapsed, okay, until the flute comes in. Here we've got 7 measures that the flute will be resting. Okay, this is another way you can conserve paper, by collapsing the measures. All right, and the flautist doesn't have to sit there and look at all those measures and wonder how many times they have to count. Okay, so that's another thing that you can do. Now, each of those options is specific to the part. Okay, so we'll go back here to the conductor score. Okay, we're going to uncheck the hide the resting staves, okay, so that you can see everything. And one of the other things that we can do, which you typically won't have to do much, now you might have, let's say you only want to have one system, okay, one set of notation per page. If you look back at page 1 here, this is nice and spread out. It's very easy to read. We go to the next page, we actually have two systems, okay, or two groups. Okay, we go, this is measure 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Let's say we only wanted to have this system on this page, okay? We can go to Layout, and then here we're going to go to Page Layout, okay? And there are some tools that you can use, all right? We can, you can use this to move bar lines. Bar lines here, you can scoot them to the left or the right. You can use the spring here. I'll tell you what, we'll show you that. We can do that to scoot things to the right. You're going to squish some and not others. But if you want to kind of nudge them around a little bit to make it look more like what you want, then you can do that. Okay? These little spring things, these are kind of cool. This will spread things up or down for the whole system. Okay? Now, another thing that you can do is you can force system breaks. Okay, if you want only these two measures here. Okay. Oh, I clicked in one. Okay, like I said, if you don't like what happened, you can undo it. Okay. Let's say we only want the two. I made a mistake and I clicked over here. I should have clicked in this one. We're going to break the system there. Okay, so now we've got just the two measures. All right. I'm going to undo that because I'm going to show you another one. Okay. So getting back to the one where we only wanted one system per page, okay, you can use force a page break. Okay, so with that, look at that. It's nice and spread out again. You know, some people don't mind having it crowded. Some people want it more spread out. You can force a page break. And you'll see that actually shows up when you're looking at the page layout. It shows you that there's a page break. If you want to keep a measure with something in the same system, let's say we want to put this measure up at the end of this system, okay? So we'll click on the keep the measure with the previous one on the same system, and you click in that measure, and now what you'll see, there's measure 10, and it's stuck or it's locked. That's what this little lock symbol here means. It's locked to the previous measure. Okay? There are other options that you can do. You at the mouse click, if you want to have two systems on the same page, you can click this one and then click into, we'll go to the next page over here. Okay. And we can click into that one. And now that sticks that one at the bottom of the page, okay? What happens if you don't want to do that? If you've got something that's, you know, maybe you've used the you know, do a certain number of measures per system type of thing, okay, and you don't want to do that. In layout, page layout, if you see these types of things and these types of locks, and you don't, maybe there's one that you don't want to do, click on it. It'll highlight in blue. And then I'm going to hit the delete key on my keyboard. Okay, takes it out and resets the formatting. If you've done a bunch of stuff and you just don't like it, you can either use the undo back to where you want to be, or you can set the layout to the default layout. Okay, and this will ask you some very specific questions. Where do you want to do that? What types of layout controls do you want to have for, do you want to go back to the default? Okay, so it tries to be very specific and allow you some very fine control. We're going to do all of them. Okay, so now it goes back to the original that we saw before, because those were the default settings. Okay, so there's a lot of control that you can have here. Now, what about sort of just general horizontal control or general vertical control? Okay, you can do your horizontal stretch, okay, which means side to side. The current stretch here is 100%. Okay, the default for musician and composer is set by generally accepted engraving rules. Okay, so it tries to give you automatically some pretty nice looking sheet music. You can change that though if you want to increase it in a large increment. Okay, see, we've spread out a little bit more. You can see, and now it shows you that the current horizontal stretch is 120%. It's spread out a little bit more than typical. You can change that either large increments or in smaller increments. And if you want to change the default vertical spacing, you go to Format, Font Size and Spacing, and here you also have a repeat of the horizontal spacing. Okay, and it's set at 120 because that's what we'd set with the buttons. You also can set the vertical spacing. Okay, and again, the default is for, quote, generally accepted engravers rules, but you can change that if you want more spacing between your if you want more spacing between top to bottom, then you can change that. You can change it from, say, 4/4 to maybe 6/4. Okay, let's see what that looks like. Okay, you can't tell a whole lot of change here because we don't have lyrics and things like that, but it gave you a little bit more space between different adjacent staves. Okay, so say like between string ensemble 1 here, there's a little bit more spacing. Okay, oops, wrong one. So if we go back here to this font size and spacing, we could change that to 10 if you really want. Okay, see, and that makes it much bigger. Okay, so if we change that back here, here was 6/4, here was 4/4. There's not really a whole lot of difference there, but you can use that to change the default amount of spacing. And again, whatever settings you make here, you can save that as your default. Okay, and we've covered text in a separate tutorial, so you can take a look at those tutorial videos for setting font size and such for text. And that does it for this video. Go and print beautiful scores.